All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. I just opened up the online system, so we'll let people get logged in there. And welcome. It's good to have everybody here. I'm Chris Merle, one of the counselors here at Lincoln Park High School. We have a bunch of counselors, our college and career coach. We have a fantastic representative from ISAC. So you'll be hearing from a lot of different people tonight. But we appreciate you coming out. Hopefully this is an event that is informative. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask. If they are more individualized questions, we'll stick around for a little bit at the end and answer those for you as well. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Senior Parent Night. This really is a senior family night. We also invited juniors if anyone wanted to get a head start on thinking about what you should be doing and knowing what's coming up next. So regardless of what class you're in, parents, students, we welcome you. We're glad you were able to attend tonight. We will start off with Mr. Phelan getting us kicked off. So I'll pass this over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Merle. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So we'll start out by talking about Learn, Plan, Succeed. This is the final graduation requirement for all seniors. At the end of this year, at the end of this college admissions process, you have to submit evidence through school links, and that's usually in the form of a financial aid award letter or failing that, a acceptance letter. But as you can see here, CPS expanded the definition of various college and career pathways from just college and military to college, military work, trade apprenticeship programs, job programs, and gap year programs as well. All right, to get into the first part of the college admissions process, when you guys are looking at your colleges and making your list, you will notice that there are deadlines. There's different kinds of deadlines. We're going to talk about the four major kinds of deadlines right now. So the first one is early decision. And this one is unique because it is a binding contract. If you choose a early decision deadline for your application, once you apply, if you're accepted to that school, you must decommit to all the other colleges you've applied to. This is unique among all the different deadlines that are available to you. Usually this happens on November 1st. There occasionally are some that are on November 15th or even January 1st. This is distinct from early action deadlines. Those are still early college application deadlines, but they are not binding. You can apply to as many early action schools as you want, and you're not beholden to them. Okay, so just making sure you guys are aware of those. Don't make that mistake of thinking you're applying early action and picking early decision. Now, moving on, regular admission. This is more common. This admission deadline is usually January 1st, can be February 1st or March 1st. This also should be called the final deadline. If you pass the early admissions deadlines and you pass the regular admission deadline, that's it. There's no extra time. You have to meet one of these deadlines. And make sure that, if you need anything to support your applications, that you are asking your teachers for recommendation letters well ahead of that. We'll get into that later on, but that's just something to think about. Don't leave everything to the last minute. Finally, rolling admission deadline. So this one is unique in that there isn't a posted deadline. However, colleges are accepting throughout the application period students to their freshman class, and they continue to accept students until they fill all their seats. So it's not necessarily something you want to wait until the end of the process to do. Just make sure that you're If a school that you really want to get into has a rolling deadline, that you are prioritizing that as well. Any questions about any of this? All right, move on. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Merle. So there are several kinds of applications. The most common that most of your students and probably many of the people seated here have already begun is the common application. So over 1,000 schools are members. Chances are most of the schools that your student is applying to is a member of this network. The advantage of this is that you apply one time to all these other schools. So you fill out all the application information, do the main college essay, and it's sent to multiple schools. It can be a very efficient way to do this. Also linked in this presentation are the 7 Common App essay prompts. So if you haven't already started on the essay, that you have that guide already. There are also within the common application specific to the universities that your child has chosen, individual college writing supplements. So those are short answer essays to that pertain to that particular college. Also, another way to apply is through individual applications. So that, in other words, means you're applying directly to that institution. And there are some schools that are not members of Common App and require you to apply directly to them. Georgetown is one of them. That's the option that you would pick for that. And there are also other types of applications. There's the coalition application that tends to be more on the West Coast, but also University of Florida. You'll see some examples up here, University of Washington, University of Maryland as well. And then if there is the Common Black College app, and that's for the HBCUs or historically Black colleges and universities, there's 51 of them. After submitting a $35 application fee, it covers all of those schools. And then finally, UCAS or UK schools and other international platforms, that's another application platform that may interest you as well. So applications and essays, we kind of already talked about the main Common App essay. The way that you would find it is in the 3rd tab. It's the Common App tab in the Common App application. Your students, if you have it already, have already set up their account, should see that. But there are also individual college supplements that I referenced before. Some contain additional essays that are usually very short, reachable through My Colleges, put in the college name, and then look at the questions. Examples of these short essay prompts are like our UIC's program choice essay, honors college essays, University of Chicago's writing supplement, and Columbia College's development of creative and practice statements. So how do you actually apply? Well, through the Common App. You will link that with your School Links account. All of your students here have a School Links account. We walked them through logging in last year during spring semester. This link has to happen so that we can send supplemental documents, i.e. transcripts, to support the application. The nice thing about School Links is it provides deadline information. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for all the things that you need to know about the progress of that student's application, or your student can check it anytime they want. Also, by linking that account, we get to see that information too. So it's very important that that link has happened. And if there's any technical issues, please have your student reach out to their counselor. But we have to link Common App with School Links. Now, if your student is applying to a school that is not on Common App, there is a way in School Links to manually add that school. And this is really important because if the college that your child has applied to doesn't appear on the list that's in School Links, we don't know about it. So it's very important that all the colleges that your child has applied to appear in School Links, or otherwise those applications will not be complete because we will not have sent those colleges transcripts and other supplemental documents.
I forgot. I was going to make one announcement and I forgot at the beginning. We will be posting both the presentation tonight as well as the slide deck. So feel free to take notes, take pictures as you want, but we will be posting this on the Lincoln Park website. So you will have access to this because there are some links embedded in here as well. We want to make sure that you are able to get to those. All right, Ms. Belowich.
So Mr. Phelan touched a bit on School Links. But essentially, it's the college and career readiness platform that CPS uses to send supporting documents. It's also used for research, so students can research schools on school links. But students are not applying on school links. This is where we send transcripts, letters of recommendations, fee waivers. One thing school links does not send are the SAT and ACT scores. So if your student wants to send a test score, that would be done directly through the testing agency. So I'll walk you through school links a little bit more in depth. So all the students have an account. It's through their CPS account. So in order to access school links, they would go to cps.edu/school links. And they just use their CPS login. So they can log in through Google by choosing their CPS account. Next to the student login is actually a parent login. So parents can create their own account as well. You can also log in with your student through their account, but parents can set up their own account should they choose to do so. And this is one of the links that's embedded. It is a step-by-step guide on how parents can set up their own school links account. And they would use the same email as their Aspen parent portal. But if you look at the link when the slides are posted, it'll kind of walk you through how to set up a parent account. So once logged in, this is what school links look like. We actually just finished going through all of the senior English classes to log into school links and kind of explain how to use it in the college application process. So this is the home page. It has college visits. That is actually when college rep visits come to Lincoln Park High School and give an information session in the college lab. In order for students to attend the college visits in the lab, they would need to sign up ahead of time. So they would sign up on school links about a day before. They can attend during their lunch period. They can attend during a class with the teacher's permission. And then you can see all of the schools that are visiting Lincoln Park. So definitely worthwhile if a student's interested in a school. A lot of times these are the reps that read the student's application. So it's really beneficial to come meet the rep, ask questions, things like that. They'll have some to-do list items listed in school links. It's usually like activities we do with the students in class. On the side there is scholarships and upcoming events. So any announcements will be posted there. And then where they will spend most of their time is in the colleges tab. So if they click the colleges tab on the left there, it'll bring them to where they need to enter the teacher letters of recommendation and kind of make sure they have everything they need with their college application process. For example, this would be if a student's applying to Northwestern, you can see Northwestern is listed there. So once a student links their account with Common App, it'll automatically import. So we essentially need school links and Common App linked together so that every school in Common App is then in school links. If the school is not in there, then they won't receive the transcripts, letters of recommendations, and things like that. A lot of the students already linked their accounts this week in class. If they didn't, then they probably received the information and kind of know what we're talking about. When the student sees the full list in there, it's very tiny. I don't think you can see it from here, but there's a mailbox and a green check. Next to the green check, it'll tell you if there's some other counselor documents, and the mailbox actually indicates if they need a teacher letter of recommendation. In order to have the teacher send the letter directly to the colleges, the students have to add the teacher to each college. So what they would do is they would click this little pencil to edit, and they would add the teacher. No worries. So this is the page it would take the students to actually just add recommender. Every teacher in CPS is in the system, so they just need to enter their name and the teacher will be added to school links. Of course, the student wants to ask the teacher first. Teachers are less than thrilled if they just receive an email from a student and they're like, oh, well, I guess I'm writing so-and-so a recommendation. So you want to make sure you ask the teacher. Once they agree, add their name to Common App, or sorry, to school links. Each college will have a different number of recommendations that they accept. So some colleges don't want any letters of recommendation. U of I at Urbana-Champaign, they will not read teacher or counselor letters, whereas some schools like Northwestern, they're indicating that they require one teacher, but they will accept up to two. So for every college on the list, the student would go through and click the pencil for each college so that they can see how many letters that particular college will require or that are optional. A little bit more about letters of recommendation. This tends to be a topic that students have a lot of questions about. One is, who do you ask? There's no really right or wrong. A good rule of thumb is ask the teacher who you feel like knows you the best. So you want to ask a teacher who has a lot of content, examples of your work ethic in class. Maybe you participate a lot, you ask for extra help. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a class a student got an A in. If they worked really hard and they had some projects they're really proud of, that might make for a great letter of recommendation. So the purpose of the teacher letter is to kind of speak about the student as a student in their classroom. The difference between the teacher letter and the counselor letter, the counselor touches on kind of the whole student. So we talk about academics, extracurriculars, and a little bit about their character and personality as well. So when asking a teacher, think about a teacher who knows you well, has a lot of great examples they can talk about in class. And we recommend a teacher you had last year during junior year, because that's the most recent and the classes tend to be a bit more difficult. So colleges care a little bit more about what a teacher who just had you in class last year, maybe an AP class or like a core class, versus maybe what a freshman teacher would have to say about what you're like as a student, because students have grown and changed a lot since freshman year. Do not ask more teachers than you need letters for. So if you know you only need 2 letters of recommendation, don't ask 5 teachers, because 3 of those letters will go to waste. And teachers do spend a lot of time outside of school writing the letters. So make sure you ask the number of teachers that you know will actually get read and sent to the colleges. And also make sure to give the teachers time. So we recommend at least a month notice so that they have time. If they have about 40 or 50 letters that they need to write by November 1st, they need to plan accordingly. If you ask a teacher the night before, they can't guarantee that they'll have it in. And if they do, it's probably going to be rushed and not as strong of a letter as it could have been if you gave them some time. So for anyone thinking that they want to apply early by those November 1st deadlines, now is a great time to ask those teachers and get on their radar. Similarly with counselor letters, give us time. You don't have to necessarily ask your counselor, add them to school links. You do have to fill out a mandatory survey if you need a letter of recommendation. So that survey is in Google Classroom, and it's going to ask just a lot more information for us to be able to write a really strong and thorough letter. So make sure once you complete the form, you let your counselor know, and we can get started on your letter. And I believe Ms. Rucker is next to talk about some of the forms required.
I volunteered to go through the bureaucratic part of this process. So as you now have had a child in Chicago Public Schools for many years, maybe their entire life, you know that the needs of the bureaucracy always expand to meet the needs of the bureaucracy. So there are some additional, even though we live in a wonderfully electronic world, there is no way that CPS has created some ground rules for us to insist that we also have a paper copy of your release for the transcript. So this is kind of the legal verbiage about it. There's a FERPA law, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. That's what it stands for. And what it does is the kids will electronically, we always tell them to please waive their right to access letters of recommendation, just because that sends a positive context that they trust their teachers, that they will write positive letters. We all write positive letters. And then the other part is we have to have a signed transcript release form on file. So we did pass those out in the class today. There are links, I believe, that we're either going to have embedded or we have and we also have some paper copies here if you want to sign off before you leave today. But we're going to insist that before we actually send a transcript out, we're going to have that paper copy on file. So each counselor will keep those copies on record. Basically, if your child is already 18, lucky them, they get to sign it without your signature. If not, just sign off for them. So when I was going through this, we can go to the next slide. When I was going through this with the students today, one of them actually read it. And then started asking me questions about it. And I was like, well, I haven't read it. So then I started reading it. And I was like, oh, how cute. They think that we're going to release all this information about them. So this is kind of based on what is in Aspen. And as you know from the Aspen Parent Portal, it's really straightforward and totally easy to use, right? All right, right, okay. So there's these other aspects in Aspen that allows you to enter in other student data besides their grades and their classes, but nobody in CPS adds those into Aspen, so those things just don't exist. What we have is basically their transcript has just a few things. It has their legal name, address, and it then shows freshman, sophomore, junior year, and basically spells out the classes that they took, the semester grades only that they received for the class, not the quarter grades, those aren't there. And then just cumulative attendance, meaning total number of absences that the student may have missed during a semester. So that's all that's on the transcript. It's not a lot of information, but that's pretty much the only information that would be sent out. And so when I started looking at this, where you can check off all these neat little boxes, I'm like, oh, honors and awards received. And I'm like, well, we don't have that. Participation in extracurricular activities, we don't keep records of that. Attendance records, yeah, cumulative. And there is another separate form that we also gave the kids because we can't put it all on one form because that would make too much sense. So there's a separate form that you can fill out and sign off that you want your class schedule actually on the transcript. But when we file these transcripts to the colleges, you can rest assured that if we don't have the schedule on the transcript, we check a box and say it's not on the transcript, and then we upload a copy of the school's schedule, the kid's schedule, into their records. So no matter how you do it, no matter how you slice it, you're going to have the classes that they're currently enrolled in, that they're taking, along with their full transcript, will be sent out to the colleges and universities. So don't overthink the boxes. Just sign the form. We're gonna keep it, and then we're gonna send out transcripts. Okay. I think that's the last one. Current schedule. Oh yeah. So yeah, this is the opt-in form. I told the kids that there are people downtown that make twice as much money as I do to create all these extra forms for us to do. I don't know who this person is who acted who created. It's like, oh, wonderful, we can finally put the schedules on the transcripts. Oh, we have to now have a form signed in order to put the schedules on the transcript. Like, oh, okay. So it's fine. If they do it, great. If they don't do it, doesn't matter. The schedules are still going to get sent out. And I think it does exist in English and Spanish. The last part is SAT scores on transcripts. Again, a third magical form that you can fill out by CPS, but this is the one that I would not necessarily sign off on. Reason number one, it's only going to put the SAT score that they took at the school on there. We don't have records of any SAT scores that they took outside of Lincoln Park High School. Number two, colleges have all become test optional, right? And test optional means test optional. If you stick the test scores on the transcript somewhere, they're going to see them, and maybe we don't want them to see them. I mean, if you want them to see them, it's fine. But we don't really need to have the SAT scores on the transcript unless you have a 1590 and it's amazing. Maybe we're just going to let optional be optional. Maybe you can pick and choose what schools you want to put these on. But we don't. I don't always recommend putting the SAT scores directly on the transcript. You can send them under separate cover. Having said that, I'm going to add my one anecdote, because every year there's an anecdote that I get to tell people about things I learned, because I've been doing this for over 20 years at Lincoln Park, came with the building. But one thing I learn every year is I always learn the cautionary tale. So last year's cautionary tale is this. This has to do with the test optional policy. So I had a student who was a wonderful student. She was brilliant. She had straight A's. She was doing IB diploma. She had she was a really, really good student. And she also took the SAT, had a pretty decent score. She had like a 1250. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't anything to like snark at, right? And she decided that she wanted one of her top choice schools was University of Maryland, College Park. And I said, oh, lots of kids have gone to University of Maryland, College Park. That's a shoo-in. That's an easy school to get into, right? So she applies to the school and we send up all of her stuff. And then several months later, she gets the word back, she's been denied. I'm like, what? How? So I pick up the phone and I call, because when I don't understand something, I want to get context. So I talked to the admissions counselor at University of Maryland, College Park, and he said, yeah, she was a really good candidate, had the great grades, had really good recommendations, had all this stuff. And I said, so why didn't you admit her? And he goes, well, she didn't apply test optional. She submitted her SAT score. And I'm like, was it 1240? Wasn't that bad? He goes, yes, but considering that our average admitted student SAT test score is a 1360, she was significantly below the average admitted student test score, and therefore we were not able to admit her. Had she applied test optional, she would have been admitted. So these are things that I'm telling the kids, like, okay, so you want to check that average admitted SAT score when you take a look at that, because you just want to make sure if it's test optional, you don't want to do something that might actually work against you. So that is my anecdotal good story to tell. I later was worried that that could have been my fault, but then I found out that her mother made her do it. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's not my fault. But yeah, she was definitely not very happy about it. She is in college. She went off to Ireland. She's probably much happier than she would have been in Maryland. So, it all worked out in the end. But that is your test optional cautionary tale for 2024. Yes, test scores. If you want to send them, you send them directly from the testing website. Is this somebody else's slide or is this mine? Okay. If you have taken the ACT, you go to the ACT website. And sometimes we have been, if it costs money to send each test score report. So if you send it, or if there's an issue, sometimes the school will allow us to download a test score report and send it directly to the college. And sometimes they will accept it that way. 95% of schools and universities remain test optional, with the exception of the state of Florida, which also never went remote and never dropped the test score requirement. So schools in Florida all require the SAT. And recently, Purdue University was one of the universities that is common to most kids at Lincoln Park apply to, also went back to a test required policy. MIT is another one, but of the local schools that require SAT tests, you just don't want to double check on the school's website, but most schools have continued to remain test optional. Is that it? Let's see. Yes, so these are all this is the embedded links for all of these wonderful forms. I salute the person who created all these forms. I'm like, why can't they just all be on one form? And people are like, I don't know. So we have 3 forms. And I think that is that it? Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rucker. You're hilarious. This one? Oh, I thought I had 21, the next one. Oh, yeah, you good. But so this is going to be also a form. This is a helpful tip sheet for the summary of process for Common App, components of it, how you can apply, counselor letters of recommendation, teachers letter of recommendation. So this just gives you a brief overview of how that can be able to get done. All right. Next slide. All right. So CPS decided to start actually a new program a couple of years ago that they started to notice that there were schools that usually a lot of CPS students would attend, along with the city colleges of Chicago and schools, various schools that are in the Midwest. This program is called the CPS Direct College Admissions Program. There are 3 steps to it. Initially, they will send out an email to students if they've added one of these or one of the 50 schools or a variety of those 50 schools on their actual college list. All right. And what would happen is they're going to send them a list of the schools that they would be automatically accepted into, that they were that the schools that they were added based upon the list that they have on Common App or even on School Links. Okay. Step 2, they can research a lot of these schools within School Links, Common App as well. And then they can decide which one of those schools that they that matches up with the academic profile, but then also too, if they want to be able to attend those particular institutions. Also, what helps with this is visiting or meeting with the college reps that will be visiting actually my classroom, which is room 112. All right, that's step 2. Step 3, all they have to do is just apply and they'll be in, depending on if they meet the standards and metrics of said schools that are offered on that list. Those schools are going to be actually linked on this actual web this page here, so you can see which 50 schools are automatically accepting students from CPS. Next, the wonderful world of scholarships. All right, the wonderful world of scholarships. Each year, being a former college recruiter for the 4 year or 5 years that I've been in CPS, there's always so much money left on the table. And that is from just students not being able to maybe complete an application. They started, they're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to qualify, and not being sure that they can actually be able to get this scholarship. Most important part is filling out the information, completing it, reading through all the requirements. These 4 different QR codes will give access for students and families to see kind of what scholarships are out there. And also too, you can receive a weekly update from CPS in regards to what scholarships are going to be offered for that particular week. So that being said, students, staying on top of this, being sure that they can get the access to this information. You can scan any of those QR codes, and that'll give you the information on our academic, our scholarship academic workbook, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But once you receive this PowerPoint, you can click on the slide, and then you can register your email address, and you can have that sent directly to you in terms of the updates for scholarships. Next, that is the scholarship email that you can send your email to. So then what they'll do is they'll confirm your email address, and then they'll start sending you weekly updates about what scholarships are available for that particular week. All right, that's most important. Another thing would be is that what I talked about earlier, the CPS academic works page. So that's a way that students can see if they've met any of the criteria areas, depending on what scholarships they want to apply to. So there are over thousands of scholarships that students can apply to. If you're left-handed, if you're right-handed, all right, culturally based, all right. If your hair is long, if your toes are long, it can be a variety of things, all right. But the most important part is being able to find and accessing these. I also have a link as well too that is on our school's website that you can also check out some of the variety of websites too for scholarships. But mainly this is one that will list them month by month. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Okay, I actually have this in my email signature for the CPS scholarship workbook. So if you receive the email from me, you can just see in the signature CPS workbook, and it'll actually pop up and it'll list scholarships month by month. So right now we're in the month of September. They're going to have scholarships listed out and their deadlines and the amounts and also the link, so that once you click on it, it takes you directly to the scholarship. So for example, right now there is the Quest Bridge scholarship that's the deadline is due, September the 26th. That is open right now. All right, I advise students, if you can, to apply to that and see if you match up with the requirements. This is very important. And the reason why I say that, this was also going to be, this is also in School Links. So they'll fill out 3 criteria areas under the scholarship matching section in finances in their school links webpage. All right, so the most important part is that they click on that, fill out the criteria areas, and then they'll match it up based upon whichever scholarships match up with them the best. All right, so very important. There's a lot of money left on the table. We want students to be able to be sure that they can get access to this. All right, so that being said, I want to introduce you all to, we have a new rep, a new ISAC rep that's coming in and talking with our students about financial aid and also assisting students with that whole process. Her name is Miss Marty. She's also, you recently graduated from Roosevelt University downtown. So she's going to give you some insights into what the FAFSA is going to look like. I can tell you right now that was a really big issue last year with them delaying the process and opening it up in January. But she'll kind of go over some brief overviews of that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Salma Marty. I work for ISAC, also known as the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. I'm just going to be here to give you guys a brief overview of the financial aid process. It is a little bit lengthy, but I'll try not to make it too long just so we don't get overwhelmed. So a little bit about me. As you heard, I just graduated from Roosevelt University this past semester. So I'm very recent in the experience of college. I'm here to help you with anything about the college experience or college going experience, but especially with financial aid. I'm trained in FAFSA and anything about that. So if you guys ever have any questions about that, you can always ask me. A little bit about ISAC. ISAC is a state agency. It's basically your shop for financial aid. We do a lot of different things. We administer grants such as the MAP grant, which you might have heard of. We also have different scholarships. We have prepaid tuition services, student loan forgiveness programs, things like that. But basically, we're here to help you go to college. We're here to make college affordable and accessible for everyone. So there's lots of questions in the FAFSA process. This we know. Sometimes we don't even know what questions to ask. But if you do have any questions, I would love for you to ask them. At the end, I will have my number and email at the end if you ever need to send me an email. All right. First, I'd like to start by kind of breaking the stigma of what post-secondary education is. Usually when people think of post-secondary education, they just think of your typical four-year public university, but there is more to that. We also have vocational and trade programs, for example, mechanics, HVAC, beauty school, things like that. These usually take up to 2 years, can be less depending on the program. And then we have associate's degree, which is usually earned at a community college. A very common route that people will take is going to a community college for 2 years, getting that associate's degree, and then transferring into a 4-year to get the actual bachelor's degree. That's something I see all the time. Definitely a good idea to make college going a little bit more affordable. And then we have the bachelor's degree, which is your typical, bachelor's degree, usually takes 4 years. And then the master's degree is after your bachelor's degree, and depending on the program, can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years. All right, so what is financial aid? It's a pretty broad question, but basically financial aid is just any money that's going to be helping you go to college. So financial aid can be given, can be borrowed, it can be earned, and it's just there to help you cover what you can't afford to pay for college. All right. So cost of attendance, also known as COA, is something that you're going to see a lot on these college forms when you're applying for FAFSA and applying for colleges. Cost of attendance, we break it up into two kind of like categories. We have direct expenses. Direct expenses are going to be anything that you're paying directly to the school. So for example, tuition and fees is going to be going straight to the school. If you're going to be living on campus and the campus, then you would be paying that directly to the school. If you're living at home or off campus, it would be an indirect expense. And then other indirect expenses, we have books, course materials, things like that for school, transportation, and just any other expenses. So this usually will be an estimated number on the package, but this is definitely up to your discretion. Like if you're renting books, then that number is going to be lower. If you're taking the bus instead of driving, that might be lower. So this is really up to you how much that number looks like. All right, and then for types of financial aid, we split it into two main categories. We have gift aid, which we consider free money. We put free in asterisks because usually with these scholarships and grants, there are certain conditions that have to be held. For example, the Pell Grant, to get like the full amount of Pell that you can get, you have to be full-time. So if you're not full-time, the money might be lower, things like that. Also merit-based grants, you might have to maintain a certain GPA to keep that grant. So make sure you know that what to do to make sure those grants renew and it's not just your first year. And then we have self-help aid, which is money that either has to be earned or it has to be repaid. First one is work study. That is a personal favorite of mine. I did work study all 3 years that I was in college. At Roosevelt, it was really nice because we got a grant for work study and we also got paid hourly. So it really, really definitely helped during my college experience. And then we also have loans, lots of types of loans. We'll get into those in a second. So financial aid is going to be coming from four main sources. It's either going to be coming from the federal government, which is the U.S. Department of Education. That's where you file the FAFSA. Or it'll be coming from the state government, which is us, ISAC. We administer the MAP grant as well as other grants. Colleges and universities, this is one that's underlooked a lot because colleges actually do offer a lot of grants. And you might not know how much or see how much until you apply there. And then private sources. So if you're looking at private scholarships, I think Mr. Young mentioned some things about this earlier, but a couple tips when you're looking for scholarships, think about like things that you wear, things that you eat, things that you do. For example, a lot of big corporations like Coca-Cola or like Taco Bell will have like big scholarships that you can apply for. But with that being said, tip two, local scholarships, you usually have more of a chance. So think about like your local church or local like organizations in your area that might have things going on. And then tip three, be careful with scholarship scams because they are out there. If a scholarship like application is ever asking you to pay, even if it's just like $5 or something, it's most likely a scam, so do avoid that. And then for federal gift aid, we have our main one, which is the Pell Grant, which any of you guys have family that's already in college, you might have heard of this. This is a need-based grant and it can be up to $7,395. And then we have the FSEOG. This is also need-based, but this is campus-based. So it's up to the discretion of the institution of how much they want to give you, but it does range from about 100 to 4,000. And then we have federal self-help aid, like I said, work study, campus-based. All campuses do it differently. My campus, we could only work 15 hours a week and we got paid like whatever the minimum wage in Chicago was. So it's pretty nice. And then we have federal subsidized loans. So these loans are need-based. So this is going to be depending on your SAI, which we're going to talk about in a second. And since it is a loan, the student is going to be responsible for paying. But this one is a little bit more desirable because the federal government will be paying the interest while you're in school, as well as while you're in your grace period, which a grace period is basically just usually loan servicers will give you 6 months after you graduate to start paying. And then if you ever need a deferment for any reason, if you can't afford to pay your loans, then you can ask for that. And then we have federal unsubsidized loans, which are not need-based. The student is also responsible for repaying this, and the interest will accrue while the student is still in school. So usually when you're looking at loans, you want to look at subsidized first, and then after that unsubsidized, and then after that plus loans, which are credit-based, and the parent will be responsible for paying that unless you're in graduate school and you'd like to take out your own. But generally, federal subsidized loans are more desirable. Generally, just federal loans are more desirable because they have a lower interest rate. I want to say it's around 6 or 7 right now. Don't quote me on that. But usually with private loan servicers, you'll see like closer to a 9 or a 10, which does add up. And then, like I said, you want to be really thinking about your loans. Don't get yourself into anything that might mess up. You want to think about where the money is coming from. Definitely look at those federal loans first before you look at private loans. You want to know the rate. That is very important. If it's variable or fixed, we don't see very many variable loans out there anymore. But if that is a thing, you want to make sure you're looking out for that. And then repayment. When are you required to start repaying? Most loan servicers will give you that 6 months, but just in case they don't, make sure you look out for that. And what kind of repayment options do you have? How much do you have to pay a month? Like, how is that going to go? Make sure you're looking at that before you just decide. Yeah. And then for Illinois gift aid, we have the MAP grant, a lovely grant, also need-based, and this can go up to $8,400. And this is used for tuition and fees, which usually just means that this grant will be applied first, and then the Pell Grant will be applied after. And then we have a few other grants. We have the Illinois Veteran Grant, which covers tuition and fees. Illinois National Guard grant, also tuition and fees. And then we have the grant for dependents of police, fire, and correctional officers. That is for students who've had a parent either pass away or be, hurt in the line of fire. And then we also have Isaac administers a lot of teaching grants. So if education is something that you're interested in, I would definitely recommend looking at these grants because they're very, very helpful. We have the Teach Grant, which goes up to $3,700. So for these kind of loans, it is required that you do actually teach after you graduate. Otherwise, those grants will be converted to a loan and you'll have to pay them back. If you guys want specifics on that, I can definitely tell you more about that. We have the MTI scholarship, which is for minority teachers. This covers up to $7,500 in tuition, fees, room, and board. And then we have the special education teacher waiver. And this is going to be a tuition waiver at any of the 12 public universities in Illinois. And then we also have the ECACE, which is going to cover the cost of attendance after financial aid received. So definitely some very helpful grants. All right, now, out of all those grants that we've looked at, the main two you want to remember is the Illinois MAP grant, which Isaac administers, and then the federal Pell Grant, which the federal government administers. If you are getting full of both of these, you could be getting up to almost $16,000. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you will be getting this much, but it just means this is how much money could be waiting for you. So even if you think that you might not get too much, just apply anyway. You never know what's out there, you know? Yeah. And then for the financial aid process for your first year, when you're going to college your first year, it's going to be a lot longer, but don't worry, next year it's just going to be one of these steps. So we got step one, which for most of you is going to be filing a FAFSA. If there's qualified undocumented students, they would be filing an alternative application. Both of these are going to be released at the same time. FAFSA is usually coming out October 1st. We say usually because, as you know, with the new FAFSA coming out, there's been a lot of issues. The date we have right now is December 1st, which we're pretty hopeful about. We'll see how that goes. But as soon as the FAFSA comes out, the alternative application will come out as well. And then some schools, not very many, will have other forms that you might have to do, like the CSS profile. That's very rare. You most likely won't see that. Whether you're doing the FAFSA or the alternative application, you want to make sure you have your information ready before you start. The main ones we're looking at is federal tax returns, W-2s, records of income. If you have any investments, you want to have records of that. And then most important, make sure that you have the list of colleges you want to go to ready before you file the FAFSA. The FAFSA will allow you to put up to 20 colleges. So even if you don't really know if you want to go to that college, you might as well just put it just in case. But yeah, and then for the FAFSA only, the student will need a social security card, number. If the parent doesn't have one, that's okay. We can still file a FAFSA. If the student is not a US citizen, they will need their ARN. And then for the FAFSA, you will need to make an FSA ID, which we'll talk about right here. So FSA ID, it seems more complicated than it is, but what it really is just a username and password that serves as your signature when you're filing the FAFSA. So for the FAFSA, both the student and the parent will need to make their own. This is something that you could do right now if you wanted. We actually recommend doing it before the FAFSA because it'll just make the process way quicker. If you do it beforehand, you're most likely going to get your SAI generated like right after you submit it, which is definitely very helpful. You can create it at www.studentaid.gov.fsaid. This is also something that Isaac helps with a lot. We do workshops for FSAIDs. So if this is something that you need help with, we can definitely help with that too. Parents without a social security number can still create an ID. It's a little bit different of a process. There's some verification involved, but it's still possible. Okay. And for purposes of the FAFSA, the word parent is, thought of a little bit differently. Most students will have to report their parent information until the age of 24, even if you're not living with them, even if they're not claiming you on their taxes. Until the age of 24 for FAFSA purposes, they are considered your parents. Parents are considered biological, adoptive, and step parent if married to a biological or adoptive parent. Unfortunately, legal guardians, foster parents, grandparents, friends, relatives, and other people, even if they claim you on their taxes, they won't count. Unless that person has legally adopted you, for FAFSA purposes, they do not count as your parent. So if there's ever confusion about which parent to report, because I know that's definitely something I struggled with, I think these questions help a lot. So firstly, Are the students' biological and adoptive parents married to each other? If your parents are married to each other, you file both parents. If they're not, do they live together? If your parents are unmarried, but they live together, you still file both parents. If they don't live together, then you ask which parent provided more support in the past 2 months. If you can figure out which parent it is, it's that parent. If it seems like split, like 50-50, or the parents can't decide, then you would file the parent with the greater income and assets. Now for sections of the FAFSA, luckily it's a lot shorter now. Not too much going on. We have personal identifiers like name, address, things like that. Personal circumstances. This is where you might be able to get a dependency status depending on your situation. We got demographics. Financials is where you would be putting in tax information, records of income, things like that. Colleges, that's where you put in that list of colleges that you want to attend, and then you would sign. And then the parents would also do their personal identifiers, their financials, and then they would sign. Once both the parent and student have signed, the FAFSA is complete. Oh, wait, sorry. I'm so sorry. So for the alternative application, it's a little similar, but it's instead of being split into parent and student, they kind of just do them together. Student demographics, taxes, dependency questions, household information would be like how many kids are in the house, how many are going to college, things like that, just to know what kind of financial situation you're in. And then also the school choices. The alternative application only lets you apply to 10 schools or send to 10 schools. But I believe you can request to add more schools if needed. And then that one you would review, edit, and then sign, just like the FAFSA. For signing, it's a little bit different for the two. For the FAFSA, you would be signing with that FSA ID that we talked about. That would be your signature. And then for the alternative application, it would be a PIN that is sent to the email of the parent and student, and then they would sign that way. So the Student Aid Index, SAI, is a word you might have heard of. You might know it as EFC, expected family contribution. That's what it used to be known as. This is basically the number that, or what the federal government thinks you can afford to pay for college. So the number can be as low as negative 1,500 and as high as you can imagine. Like we've seen really high ones, there's not necessarily a limit. If you have a negative 1,500 SAI, it is most likely that you will be getting a full Pell and a full MAP. I say most likely because there still might be other things involved, but generally the lower the SAI, the higher the aid. Now, step 2, verification. It's a little intimidating if it happens, but don't worry. It happens to a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily mean it's your fault or you messed up anything. Sometimes schools just need to verify. So it's a process used by schools. Just make sure that everything that you sent on that application adds up. You're going to probably have to submit some documentation like ID or something like that. And then make sure that you're submitting it on time. You don't want to delay anything. And also keep copies, because most likely if one school is going to ask you to verify, another school might also ask you to verify on the same thing. So keep that in mind. And then step 3, you want to receive and review your offers. This little equation, so cost of college, and then subtract that by your SAI, which is what the school or what the government thinks that you can contribute. And then whatever is left is how much either the school would have to cover or you would have to cover. There's a lot of things you want to think about when you're analyzing your offers. For example, think about the deadlines for accepting these offers. Don't think just because you got accepted that means like you're enrolled. You have to physically accept or whatever they sent you. And then make sure you're looking at what kind of aid is on that package. So they'll send you a document usually called a financial aid package, and it'll show you all, like basically what you're going to be paying for college. But make sure to look at the fine print, because sometimes they'll sneak loans in there and it'll look like free money, but it's not. So make sure that you're looking at the more desirable offers, the ones with more grants and loans. So this is a graph I really like because it shows that not everything as it seems. The cheapest looking school might not actually be the cheapest one, and the most expensive one might not be the most expensive one. So for example, College A, let's say that is your local community college. Let's say that's Harold Washington, for example. Low cost of attendance, 13,000. SAI is going to be the same no matter what school you go to. And then OFA is going to be what assistance that school is giving you. community colleges usually don't give as much grants because the tuition is already low. So if you went to college A, you would be having to pay more than $5,000, which is a lot. College B, let's say that is a public university, UIC, for example, mid kind of tuition, 27,000. SAI is the same, and then 20,000 in OFA. Still be paying about 4,000, which is a little expensive, but still less than that. And then college C, very high tuition. Let's say that's a private university, say Roosevelt University, for example. Private universities are very well known for giving a lot more grants because they have a lot of donors and they have a lot of money. So although it may seem more expensive, they do have a lot of money and they can help a lot. So keep that in mind. So college C comes out to 1,500, even though it is on the face the most expensive, it might not be for you. Now, you want to make sure when you're making your decision that you're responding to all the schools, not just the one you want to go to. You want to make sure you're also declining the schools you don't want to go to free up that space for a school or for a student who does want to go there. Now, step 5, complete pending process. Now, this depends on the student, whatever you got to do. If you're going to be living on campus, make sure that you're submitting your housing deposit, making sure that you're signing up for housing, you have a room set up. A lot of schools will ask you to send immunization forms, or vaccine records or things like that. So make sure that you are sending all the forms. You make sure you're checking your email because there might be more things you have to do after getting accepted. Now, step 6, repeat the process every year. Luckily, you don't have to do all of those unless you're transferring or something, but the FAFSA is something that you will have to do every year. And this is because circumstances change. You're not going to be making the same amount every year. There might be like a chance where you like lose income or lose job or something like that. That happened to my mom while I was in college. She lost her job because of COVID. So we had to do like a FAFSA appeal, and I was able to get my full Pell back because of that. So making sure that you're keeping up with those circumstances and that you're getting the money that you're supposed to be getting. Now, tips and reminders, apply as soon as applications become available. Probably won't be October 1st, unfortunately, but when they do come out, apply quick. The Pell Grant, that money is always going to be there for you. It's decided. The MAP grant, it is first come, first serve. Luckily, it usually doesn't run out, but just in case, apply early. And then, the FAFSA and alternative application are free. So if you ever find a website that is asking you to pay, that is not a real website. As well as if someone is charging you to help with the FAFSA, don't do that. We're here, we're free. And then also, it's never too early to apply for scholarships. I know kids who started applying in middle school, there's not a certain age. It just depends on the scholarship. They'll have lots of different ones, especially applying for scholarships while you're in college. That's really helpful. And then, make sure you're reapplying for the FAFSA every year you're in college. And then if you ever have any questions, we have something called the ISAC Student Portal, which I think is very helpful, has a lot of information, especially about those grants that I talked about earlier. So if you're interested about the specifics of those and how to get those, that'll be on there. And then for trusted websites, we have studentportal.isac.org. The FAFSA will only be found on studentaid.gov or FAFSA.gov. So if it's not a .gov, get off of there. And then the alternative application is going to be isac.org alternative application, since that is coming from us. And then we also have something called the First Generation Scholars Network. So a first generation student is basically just any student who is the first to go to college in their family. Even if you have a sibling that's also going to college that went before you or during you're still considered a first generation college student, especially as well as if your parents went to college in a different country, you would still be a first generation student since they did not go here. This network is very helpful. It lets you connect with other students, and it also lets you find the programs on the campuses that you want to go to see if there is anything beneficial there for you. And then we have a communication list. If you'd like to know immediately when the FAFSA comes out, you'll know right when we know. If you want to scan that, go ahead. And that's it for me. If you guys have any questions, I can answer them now. If not, I have my email and my phone number up here. Thank you.
All right, let me switch back to the other slides. So the slide deck that we made here at Lincoln Park is a lot of what we went over with your students during this past week during the lessons. Of course, it's going to give me problems. But what we mainly want to show you, just because we're having this night tonight, just because we went into your students' classes, doesn't mean we expect you to be experts on this. So please utilize us as advocates, as resources for you to use. Up here, we have all of our email addresses, as well as most of us have these You Can Book Me links, which is basically connects you with our calendar. We'll let you know when we're available. You can make an appointment. Parents, if you want to come in, you are welcome to. If not, we can send you a link, Google Meet link. And so you can meet with us, ask questions. Right now, we're meeting with students individually if they want to go over the whole college process planning. Mr. Young is a great resource to do that as well. But we are here to help you. Like I said, we have these general nights, but a lot of times you might have questions that are more specific to you or may just want more in-depth planning. Feel free to make appointments with us. We are happy to go through the process with you and give you the answers that you need. Now, I will say that we don't know all the answers as much as we would like to think that we do, but usually we know the resources to find the answers for questions you may have. Question? So you should be using school links because that's how we send your transcripts and everything like that. But you can apply to a school directly, like if you're applying to, Mr. Young mentioned Georgetown, which is an Uncommon app. Or if you have a different school that you're just applying to using theirs, you can add on your school to school links manually. And then that's how we send your information. Correct. Correct. Yep. No problem. Are there any other questions that we can answer for you? Yes. You bet. The coalition application started, gosh, probably about 8 years ago. And the reasoning behind it was they wanted to have more of a, what's the full word, or what's the words to use? Kind of a locker room or a portfolio. And so it's sometimes people are able to add artifacts and they use that to evaluate the student. Last I checked, there aren't a ton of schools on the coalition app. It tends to be a little more involved for students. And so unless there's a specific reason to use the coalition app, schools that are on the coalition app, I believe, are also on other applications as well. But again, if the student feels like, you know what, I feel like maybe more artifacts, more work that I've done in high school might help to promote who I am as a student, that might be a reason to use the coalition app. So the coalition, similar to Common App, is its own application. So if you Google coalition app, you can find the website. Any other questions? Yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear. So the question was about personal statements. Is that done through English classes? I know a lot of English teachers do incorporate that into their curriculum. I think, other resources outside of that. I have students that share on a Google Doc with me, and then we make notes back and forth. So there isn't one way to do it. I've had a variety of ways. And again, some students are more picky with who they share it with. Some people are more free. One of the things that we do say is, feel free to get feedback, but get feedback from appropriate people. Just because your buddy reads it may not be the best person to be editing your personal statement. But usually all of us kind of know what colleges are looking for, and so we can be a good resource for that. The second question is, do we organize college tours? So Mr. Young has organized different trips to colleges, to fairs, stuff like that. A lot of that is dependent on budget and busing. Busing in Chicago has been a major hurdle, trying to find buses because there are no bus drivers. So that tends to be a little bit more tricky. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. If a college that you're interested in is coming to Lincoln Park High School and you're able to go, it's always good to meet those reps because usually your local reps are the first ones that read your applications, and so then they're able to put a face to a name. So we do recommend that you try to make it if a school you're interested in comes into Lincoln Park. All right. Well, we do have copies of the forms up here, so your students should have all gotten them in English. If you did not get a copy, or if you're worried a copy might not make it home, feel free to come up and grab a copy now. We're happy to take them for you so you don't have to worry about things getting lost in a bag. But otherwise, we appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much. We'll stick around if you have any individual questions. Have a great night. I almost forgot. Please, if you don't mind, take a second, scan the QR code or use the bit.ly up here and evaluate the program this evening. The way that we grow best is to learn from you, the types of things that maybe you wish you had heard that we did not present. So please take a few minutes and fill this out. Big thank you to Miss Marty for coming in. We really appreciate your information as well.